So yeah, I mean that's our chat for now, and just kind of looking through the questions and comments here. I'm glad everyone is joining us this afternoon, wherever you're at. Oh, I do see Josh here, and yeah, so Josh talks about a living document is helpful, and what Josh is referring to is with the Left Unity Study Group is they have a Google Doc, and during their session they keep an actual, yeah. So that living document, someone is taking notes during that session, and there's questions, answers, and it's that living document, so they can go back to that. So they talk about Luxembourg's Reform or Revolution texts. They can go back to that, and that can be ongoing as well. If people want to go back to that same reading, they can see that and maybe add on to it, or someone wants to go back to it, like, oh, I have a question about this, or here's my thoughts on that, because I think it has to be, you can do something like that as well. And the other question I'm seeing here is with Jeannie, I think what to do with saboteur disruption should be decided in advance. Yeah, so that's really important with those that new member, right? So when we have that new member, it's also important to have that one-on-one conversation with that new member to not only understand who they are, but kind of get a feel as to, Garrett, I really like this person who came here, but my spidey sense thinks that, they're with the Chicago police, and here's why, just of what they said, because it does happen from time to time. You may have that person who might be coming here just to disrupt, and we have those disruptors who infiltrate our groups, just to do that, and this is from my personal experience, even the one who's a little bit more expressive, saying, I'm a libertarian, I just want to see what you're all doing and everything. I mean, I'm still keeping an eye out, saying, okay, I see you, but do you understand where you're at? So it's important to talk about those things and see what to do and everything. Garrett, how would you handle someone who's a disruptor in one of your groups?
Oh, I think that's where it's important to have the ground rules, that if the group kind of from the beginning has a good sense of the ground rules, the facilitator together with the group can take action on this sort of thing, and warn people, please respect, the stack, for example, please respect other people's opinions, and if it gets serious enough, you might even try to eject them from the meeting. It can get tricky, to be honest.
No, it really can. But that's where, again, when we have, this is a group thing, right? This is not a one person doing this group. If you have, people there who's starting this group, is have to have that conversation as to, like, what do we do? I'm not seeing any other questions. There's like a lot of good comments in here. Even again, Joshua Bailey once again shows about possibly use Reddit. I have to be honest. I don't use Reddit as much. I understand Reddit lingo, but that's the extent of my thing. But for those who are Reddit savvy, I can see how Reddit can be another platform to utilize to attract folks and everything. Garrett, do you use Reddit?
Yeah, I do. I do use Reddit. There's actually a Green Party subreddit. If people want to check that out, I think it's just r/Green Party. Although I think a few states and others have subreddits too, as well as the Young Eco-Socialist, which is the youth caucus of the Green Party, has its own subreddit. So those are places that you might post announcements. If you're starting a new reading group, you might post an announcement there, and it might pick up a few people. There's other like topic focused subreddits on socialism, for example, that you might want to go look at. And, depending on their rules, you don't want to step on any community's rules, of course, but you might be able to post announcements there as well and recruit people into your group. But if you're getting a new group off the ground, you probably want to try to start with kind of local Green Party members or people in your circle somehow connected through organizations, so that you're setting those ground rules and all that, so that you're kind of prepared just in case there is a disruptor or whatever. If you kind of cast too wide of a net at first, I think it could be more difficult to organize. You kind of start small and build from there.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for that, because again, not Reddit savvy. I like what Reddit does. I just need to get on that, quite honestly, and see what that community is about. And it's very important. And what's also important is to know when our next session is, which is the 15th. Is that correct, Garrett? 12?
Oh, I should double check. Yeah, the 12th. I think it was a Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so there'll be a follow-up Zoom session where instead of this live stream format, it'll be meant to be more of the discussion group that we've been talking about this during this live stream, where we'll get together some folks to actually talk about a reading and discuss it, analyze it, ask questions, kind of link it toward our personal experiences, and just kind of illustrate all of the topics and ideas that we've brought up today.
Yeah, so, check the link below to register for the next workshop at the greensocialist.net site. And, be sure to be there for that, because from hopefully here on out, we're going to show everyone like what that reading group, how to run a running group and everything, and also show you along the way other hone in other things to do with that and everything. So that's all I have. What do you got, Garrett?
I think that's probably it, unless there's more questions.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing any other questions. I saw one comment. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone and thank you, Garrett, for doing this. And
yeah, thanks for leading, AJ.
Not a problem. I see Amy has a question really quick. We'll take one last question.
Oh, let's do it.
What do you got, Amy? I just like live streaming like this. You don't do this on a podcast as often. Wait for the question to come up a little bit.
Yeah, no problem, baby.
Here we go. When you started with your first group, what was the biggest misgiving, and how did you overcome it? That's a very good question. I would say for me, with my first group, I think the biggest misgiving, honestly, was assuming that people knew the author that we're doing, and the one was Marx, and I'm trying to understand. I want to say it was Capital by Marx. I want to say was that book. And again, I thought everyone knew Marx because they were all leftists. And it's like, we haven't read Manifesto. I'm like, oh, let's go back to the beginning. It's like that first album, let's go back to the start and then come back, So yeah, this again goes back to his assumptions. Like, don't assume everyone knows authors or public intellectuals. They may have heard names before. Fanon, Chomsky, Nader, Luxembourg, Butler, they may have heard these names, but never read their stuff, you know? So, like, let's not assume that someone has read their stuff before and everything. So that was one of the biggest misgivings for me. What about you, Gary?
Yeah. And to kind of add on to your point real quick, not everyone is necessarily familiar with all the details of these readings.
Yeah.
And even if they recognize the names, sometimes in reading newspaper, magazine articles or whatever, that particular journalist isn't very familiar with their writings. And so will misunderstand or misinterpret, and then they write something and then other people read it and now they have a misunderstanding or misinterpretation. And so it can get complicated. So it's important to make sure that you're starting from the beginning. And I think one thing that I think of is maybe ideally you almost need kind of two parallel tracks, not to create more work for anyone, but you almost need to have like a regularly reoccurring like beginner sequence of a few readings or something to get new people on board, at the same time as having this ongoing more intermediate advanced thing for people who have read the manifesto, for example, who don't need to start over there again, but there's always more to learn and read about.
Right.
In terms of my personal things, you might not be able to tell from me talking like this, but I actually get nervous in big groups of people in public speaking. And so I think probably the biggest hurdle to me with starting groups is getting really excited and then having kind of jitters the night before, like, oh my goodness, what did I just sign myself up for? Am I really what am I going to do about this?
Yeah.
And I just the best way to handle that, I think, is just be prepared. Make sure you know what article you're going to read, print out the night before sign up sheets and all that stuff, and just make sure that you have everything together so that you're not feeling anxious about last minute putting things together. And then keep in mind that your first meeting especially is not supposed to be some big formal thing. You're not teaching a university class or anything like that. Nobody has any giant expectations on you. It's just people with similar interests, people who want to learn more, who want to be more involved in their communities, who want to meet other people who want to be involved in their communities. And so, keep in mind that it doesn't have to be all that serious. And if it helps a lot with the first meeting, that might be the perfect time that you do the picnic in the park or meet at a restaurant or something like that, to keep it as informal and as comfortable as possible, so that when you're meeting new people, it's not so scary. You're just meeting your neighbors, you're meeting your friends. It's not a big deal. And if you can kind of keep it calm like that, you can keep it going. And as nervous as you feel, just, from my personal experience, as nervous as you feel, once it gets started, that nervousness goes away. You have to just make yourself go through it. And if you can get to that point, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.